you happy with whom you're sitting next to, or in general? Kind of some hotbeds of disappointment I can see. Who you wound up next to. That's why I always show up late at one of these things, is you get to pick the table of your seat. If you get there early and then people sit down, it's very uncomfortable to say, whoa, I'm out of here. No offense. Do you know the story about baking soda? When it was probably Arm & Hammer, but I'm not really sure. There's not that many baking soda companies. But to start off with, it was kind of like a baking deal, And so at some point they realized they weren't selling as much baking soda as they'd like to. In other words, they had pretty much saturated the market. So they had a little kind of a creativity exercise, a brainstorming thing with all the sales and marketing people. And they sat around saying, what can we do to expand our sales of baking soda? See? So they said, let's pull out all the stops. Let's get really crazy. All right. So the first guy that goes says, well, okay, I got something. This is a little bit weird, but maybe it'll work. Let's try this. Let's see if we can get people to brush their teeth with it. And so people said, well, that's a stupid thought. That'll never work. But, let's not do that. And maybe that's not even crazy enough. So the second person said, well, how about this? Let's have them buy boxes of it, rip the cover off the box, and just sit it in their refrigerators. So people were kind of rejecting those ideas, And then so finally the last guy goes and he says, how about this? This is probably goes out there further than anything else you've ever heard. Let's have them open a new box and pour it down their drain. And so that's what we all do now. We actually brush our teeth with it, etc. So there's big desert, one tree in the middle of this desert, and around the tree are three people. And they're right up against the tree. All right, so here's the tree, all right, and here's the desert, all right, and there's a person on your left that's right here, just nosed right up against the tree. There's a person on your right, nosed right up against the tree, and a person with their back to you right up against the tree. And the person in the middle says to the other two people, lost in the impenetrable forest. And did you ever have that feeling, as people have experienced some new learning thing, that when they get back to the real world, it's like, it's hard to see what that looks like. There's so many things going on that we have a difficult time, I guess, framing it in a way that's going to make sense. In other words, look for what's right. All right, that's what we really need to do, as opposed to look for what's wrong. And what's interesting is most people kind of go the other way. In other words, when you ask people, how do you manage, or how do you, I guess, run your own life, and that is, most people say they manage by exception, or words to that effect. And when they talk about managing by exception, it means that when somebody comes up to you and says, I've got an idea, as something we could do better or differently or whatever, you start looking for things that might be wrong at one level or another. And a lot of times, leaders kind of go and they sit down, behind their desk or whatever, and so here they are. And they say, okay, I'm here to help, all right? And at some point, the line starts to form, all right? And so picture a lineup of people who have these opportunities for the leader to help, all right? Perhaps with something that they just learned, or something that some new policy, or some new, enterprise initiative or whatever that we're going to start doing. And it's like they walk up in front of the door with this little mouse-sized problem, all right? And so they got this mouse-sized problem, and they said, we're trying to use the new procedure, the new process, the new protocol or whatever, the new algorithm. Okay, and they kind of hold there, what should I do? And the leader says, well, I can help with that, no problem at all. And they kind of, so metaphorically, imagine the leader kind of reaches into his or her pocket or purse and pulls out a .38 and says, here, let me help. Okay, and blows that mouse into, the next county. And by the way, when the leader does that, all right, everybody that works for him or her applauds. You are a genius, I'm so glad I work for you. This is really great. Thanks for helping. You say, great, no problem. Next. Okay, so it's a T-Rex. Actually, a T-Rex. And it stands here, okay, and it gets right in front of the door, okay, and as you look out at it, you can't even tell for sure what it is because you can only see its hairy ankles and down. I mean, this is a big thing, all right? And so you pull out your .38 and you say to yourself, if I shoot it in the ankle, it might attack, I'm not going to do that, see? And you say, you know what? Put that big opportunity, that big problem, in the big problem locker. And they say, okay, it's getting kind of full in there, boss. And you say, that's okay, get it in there. So and they lead us, and they open up this big steel door with, a 4x4, and you say to yourself, what were we doing 4 months ago or 6 months ago, or when this thing started kind of coming? What were we doing then? And the answer is, you and the people who work for you were doing business as usual. You might have been training them to do something different, and they might have been reading the right stuff. The problem is, most people extrapolate from yesterday into tomorrow, and we kind of effectively back into the future based on what we've done previously. And this thing about providing structure, and support in a fashion that kind of makes this new behavior happen is no small responsibility. I see it as being basically a sacred responsibility, because if anybody in the organization can do it, it's you, it's the leader, it's the person of influence.